All right, welcome to the conversation. We got a great guest for you guys. One of the heroes of the revolution. So Representative Jamaal Bowman is joining us. Jamaal was one of the 6 brave legislators that voted no on the infrastructure bill. He's going to explain to us why he voted no, and then I'm going to explain to you why it was brave. So Representative Bowman, great to have you back on.
What's up, brother? How you doing? Good to see you.
Good to see you. It's always good to call you Representative Bowman. All right, so tell us why you voted no on the infrastructure bill.
Because for months, we all were saying that both bills needed to pass the House together. And when I say we, it wasn't just the squad, it wasn't just the Progressive Caucus, it was Speaker Pelosi, it was President Biden. The majority of the Democratic caucus was on board with passing both bills together. And at the last minute, in the 11th hour, 6 of my colleagues decided they didn't want to vote on the Build Back Better Act because it didn't have a CBO score. Forget the fact that the BIF has a CBO score that adds to the deficit. Forget the fact that we pass hundreds of bills without a CBO score out of the House. This last minute sort of pivot from my colleagues was unacceptable, and it completely pissed not just me off and the squad, but many others in the party. So I wanted to keep my word to the district, the people in my district who we've been talking to about this for months. But 2, governing in this way, in my opinion, is not done in good faith, and it's unacceptable to the American people. And 3, what's going to happen with the Build Back Better Act now, right? So we need to make sure there's an accountability component to this. The Build Back Better Act has already been gutted from 6 trillion to 3.5 trillion to 1.75 trillion. And every day you see in the news, that Senator Manchin and others want to cut it more. And then finally, and I'm learning this because I'm a freshman, to see how special interests wield power in Congress, it blows you away. And this is just another example of lobbyists, for big pharma and big, and fossil fuel companies, etc. Pretty much control how we do business. So that no vote was all of that wrapped into one.
Yeah, so that opens up a lot of questions. And I said here on the beginning, but if you're new to this, you might be confused, but wait a minute, Jamaal Bowman and the other 5 that voted no were literally the only ones who kept their promise. The original promise was that you were not going to vote in the House for the infrastructure bill until the Senate voted for Build Back Better, right? And then it got moved to, well, the House is going to vote together. Then it got moved to, no, the House is not even going to vote together. You're going to have to pass the infrastructure bill first, and then maybe on November 15th, and now it looks like probably not on November 15th, they would vote on Build Back Better. So first question that jumps out to non-Washington people is, you were the only ones who did what you said you were going to do. Is that how it was portrayed in the mainstream media?
I don't know. I've stopped watching mainstream media. I know I'm on it a lot, but I don't watch it that much just because I'm very disturbed by the framing of a lot of this stuff. Things are framed to keep people sort of thinking in alignment with what the corporate media and corporations and special interests want you to think. It's not people first. It's not grassroots driven. It's just the framing is always off. So I didn't really watch much mainstream media, but the backlash from the district initially was based on the framing from the mainstream media. Like people thought I voted against the whole bill. Like they thought I was voting against childcare and lowering prescription drug costs. They weren't clear on the 6 Democrats that went rogue They thought I was protesting Manchin and cinema. We were vilified, we being a squad, for not toting the party line, if you will. But no one vilified or paid attention to the six who pivoted, in the last minute. So yeah, so I had to then be on the offensive and really just engage my district. We did a town hall. We did a lot of the local media. I just went to two events today. I got another one after this. Just engage in conversation around, why, and we wrote a statement, and I did a direct to camera. Why it was a no vote, what it means, and what we're still fighting for going forward.
Yeah. So look, there's just a matter of fact, right? And the fact is that progressives wanted more, like paid family leave and lower drug prices. That's in Build Back Better. You didn't want less, right? And so the fight is over whether you guys are going to be able to get more for your voters, or if the corporate Democrats are going to win and get less for the voters. But it seems
real quick, and more with a focus on equity, right? Because usually when we pass these huge bills, equity is not a part of it. So you have BIF, where 90% of jobs go to white men, and then you have Build Back Better, where we're focused on women, people of color, children, seniors, immigrants, and those most vulnerable. So the equity focus is another big piece. There was no equity as part of the New Deal, as we know. I personally do not want to repeat that again with this particular bill.
Right. And so the reason you're getting blowback from your constituents is because that is not at all how the media portrayed it. They didn't say, hey, those six were principled. They're the only ones who kept their promise, and that's a fact. That's a fact. Those six were the ones who wanted the most for their voters, not the least. That's a fact. They just didn't say that. So you got to deal with blowback because of how the media portrayed it, which then leads to the question of Nancy Pelosi claimed that she was with you guys all along. Oh my God, I want those progressive provisions. I have the same interests as you guys do. And at the end, she could have made the moderates vote no, but she chose not to. She chose to make you guys vote no based on the timing of the bills. That was a very clear, stark choice that she made. When she made that choice, didn't she in essence throw you guys under the bus?
Yeah, I think that's one way to put it. I don't really get into all that, right? I know, it just, that day was a crazy day. We were on pace to vote for both. All of a sudden, those six reneged. And then there was meeting after meeting with the Congressional Black Caucus for me, Congressional Progressive Caucus. Then Biden calls and pretty much, strongly encourages us to vote for the bill. And then, the speaker, along with the majority whip and the leader, call a press conference. And I'm watching this press conference, and in the press conference, they're celebrating. Well, the body language and the tone was as if they already knew they had the votes to pass it. And I'm watching this like, okay, the CPC is still deliberating. I know where I stand. They must have Republican votes. Like that was my thinking, right? Yep. So then we get then it's full steam ahead. Like after the president got the CPC, encouraged the CPC, and that decision was made, then it was full speed ahead to the vote. So yeah, I mean, quite honestly, Cenk, this has happened with other things, right? This last minute push to vote on something that we don't get a chance to socialize in our district, explain to our district, engage with our district. And then you got this last minute vote. And then whether it's yay or nay, now you got to go back to the district and play cleanup, which I don't mind doing because it gives me the chance to kind of bring the district into the process. And I also want to say that because of what we've done in terms of messaging this week, I got so much love and support from the district today. So that was pretty powerful.
Right, but for those of us on the outside, all this seems fairly routine. Like we thought Pelosi had Republican votes when she made promises that it would pass, honestly, months ago. And and we knew that they would pressure you guys and not the conservative Democrats. We knew they would say they were running out of time. We made all those predictions on air because if you look at it from the outside, it's super obvious how they've run this game on progressives.
Here was the other one. If we don't get this, we don't get anything. The president's gonna kill the whole bill. They're gonna kill both bills, and I'm like, they're not gonna kill both bills. Why? How is that in the president's interest to kill both bills?
It makes no sense.
That was used by the highest levels of government, Cenk, to get us to vote a certain way. I mean, the very highest was using this, saying that both bills are gonna die. No, they're not. Like everybody wants the BIF for obvious reasons.
Right.
It's not gonna die. So anyway. Yeah.
No, Jamaal, that's exactly right, and exactly what I wanted to ask you about, because they got to tell you guys something. Because to non-Washington people, we all look at it and go, why wouldn't they just keep their promise? Of course they're going to keep their promise, and because otherwise they're going to lose all leverage, right? That's the number one thing. Otherwise, you can't get those provisions and Build Back Better, right? So they must have told you guys things to try to get you to vote for the bill. You ultimately were strong and said, no, we're going to keep our promise, but what did they say? Did they say like that Biden is going to make sure that the House version passes? That were there specific provisions they said are going to be in the House version? And then did they make any promise that the House version would pass the Senate?
No promise that the House version would pass the Senate. The letter that the 6 colleagues, I don't know if all 6 signed it, but the statement that they made about voting on it, whether the CBO score is good or not, the week of the 15th was as far as we got in terms of confirmation on the House side. The president did say, like, we're gonna get it done on the House side. He didn't give a date or anything. Oh no, the week of the 15th was the date. No Senate promises, and yeah, it was like, there's a scarcity mindset in America, and it plays out in Washington. And it's this mindset that it's all or nothing, or something or nothing. It's winners and losers. It's weak and strong. They use these binaries, these extreme binaries, to back you into a corner and create this fear and anxiety. And they put a clock on it. So it's like, and now you got 4 minutes to make this decision, or 3 minutes, or 2 minutes. Like, we were literally in this room with this happening, and some of us just walked out. Like, we just left the room because it was just a chaotic scene, and we just removed ourselves from that and stuck with our principles for our district.
Now there's a conspiracy theory that Nancy, and by the way, this does happen in politics sometimes, so I should just say it's a theory, to be fair, that Nancy Pelosi released your votes, that she came to you guys and said, I already have enough Republicans, so you can vote no, and that she was okay and happy with you voting no, given that she had the Republicans, and that's the only reason you guys voted no.
Yeah, no, that never happened, at least not with me. And it doesn't really work like that. I mean, I don't know. Let me not speak for anyone else. Like, it's not as neat and clean as it may seem at times. Like, it's not like conversations and people just go in there and vote, right? I knew, though, I mean, to that point, that if we were voting on it, they had the votes. And the reason why I knew that is because the speaker doesn't bring anything to the floor unless she has the votes.
Yeah.
So I figured once we were voting that she had the votes. Our 6 wasn't going to be enough to block the bill, and the bill passed. Listen, and this is the thing, right? BIF is not the best bill. It's regressive when it comes to climate and corporate giveaways, and but we were going to support it because of the Build Back Better stuff that was coming with it. That's why both bills should have passed together. So, we realize what we're up against in terms of special interests, corporate interests, and my colleagues who are, supported heavily by these interests, that's what wields power in Washington. And that's why the progressives need both inside and outside organizing strategy to fight against these. They're incredibly powerful, as we know.
So, Representative Bowman, that's such a great point and one of the reasons I was so honestly ecstatic, and I never am shy about sharing my perspective, obviously. I was ecstatic that you guys voted no, is because if you had voted yes, then it would have been really hard to get the progressive base to fight for progressive legislators, because they would say, well, they all just give in to Democratic leadership no matter what, right? And for the first time, maybe in my lifetime, progressives stood up and said, no, we're not gonna do it, no matter how much pressure you put on us. And part of what I'm trying to get other folks to understand is how much pressure you guys are under, right? Because we live in a different world, and you guys are under a crucible there. So I kind of want to understand the crucible better, which leads to a really important question. So the Trust Biden crowd, you just explained there are no promises to what's gonna happen in the Senate. So honestly, who even really cares how the House votes on Build Back Better if the Senate's gonna eviscerate it or not even gonna vote on it? So if anyone asks the people who are saying, oh, just trust Biden, what are we trusting him on? Like, aren't we gonna lose all leverage? Did they have an answer for that?
No, and I think Senator Manchin's press conference on Monday sort of illustrated that it's not really about Biden. It's 50 senators who can do whatever they want. And I think Biden, it was either Biden or the White House, or someone used the term, it's like 50 presidents over there, and that's kind of true. Yeah, what are you going to do with Manchin? How do you deliver Manchin, right? Manchin has a specific focus on very specific areas, right? Like fossil fuel industry, for example, wants to be careful with how we raise, additional revenue, right? He, against billionaires taxing, right? So he's against so many things, and so is Sinema, that I don't know how the president delivers them. I know I would like to think if I were president, I would be able to figure that out. But for whatever reason, it hasn't happened yet. So we'll see. And I want to trust the president, but I think it's not just about him. It's about Manchin and Manchin's interests and special interests overall.
So, Jamaal, if there's no secret deal and Biden is going to negotiate with Manchin and Sinema later, I can guarantee you there won't be a single progressive provision in there. There'll be universal pre-K if the bill even exists, right? There'll be universal pre-K because corporations want that. Corporate donors are happy to drive people back to work. It's a good provision, but as you're pointing out throughout the interview, you need special interests to green light things, otherwise it doesn't get in the bill. So, but Representative Khanna on this show, couple of days ago said right before the vote that he thinks Biden and Manchin have a secret deal to get some version of the House bill passed in the Senate. Do you think they have a secret deal?
I don't know, man. I'm very interested in seeing how this plays out. The other thing about our no votes is now every single day that someone in my district or anyone across the country turns on the television and they're hearing about Manchin and others who are trying to further gut the bill, it gives us a tremendous amount of credibility with our no vote. So that's every single day people are turning on the TV and they're hearing Manchin's trying to do this, Manchin's trying to do that, et cetera, et cetera. And now it's like, see, I know why. Now I know why they voted no. So that's actually a good thing. And my hope is, and not just in the House, but in the Senate as well, but less in the Senate because we in theory don't really have much leverage over them. But my hope is in the House. Now the whole country is looking at those 6. And if we don't pass Build Back Better at the current level in the House, it's going to be, those 6 are held accountable for that. And here's the other thing in terms of when we talk about the Senate, and I've been saying this a lot in interviews. if progressives were in the Senate, or if progressives have more power, we would have passed voting rights, we would have passed common sense gun reform, we would have passed immigration reform, we would have passed so many things that have already passed the House, but it's being held up by conservative, corporate-driven Democrats, and the country needs to say that's unacceptable.
So that again raises many questions. So let's tackle one that's a giant one. So for example, lowering drug prices, that particular provision in Build Back Better polls at 88%. 9 out of 10 Americans say, yes, we want lower drug prices. And you explain to them, oh, well, the drug companies say you could lower innovation and et cetera. They're like, no, we still want lower drug prices. So they love it, right? So does there come a point where progressive legislators like yourself and the others, by the way, I should give credit to the others who voted no along with you and voted and kept their promise. AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, and Cori Bush, and probably the exact 6 we would have predicted. When is there a moment where you guys come out publicly and go, look, why isn't Manchin in favor of something that 9 out of 10 Americans want? Why is he against the voters? So why is he against the voters of West Virginia who overwhelmingly want this? Why is Sinema against it? And by the way, why is Joe Biden not insisting on something that 9 out of 10 Americans want and something that every Democrat promised in their election?
So yes, absolutely, that should happen and that needs to happen, because I think we need to be out front in terms of communicating and pushing for the Build Back Better Act to be as strong as possible. So we absolutely have to do that, because again, since we voted no, if we would have voted yes and it would have passed unanimously, there are no more conversations, there are very little questions to be asked. But because we voted the way we did, now we can push Build Back Better and continue to ask critical questions and have critical conversations. And the next question after we go on the offensive and explain these things is why or how might we as the American people change this paradigm and change our behavior so that we do not allow this to continue in our government and in our country. We've accepted a certain corporate colonialism as American people, and we don't even realize that we are plugged into the matrix of corporate colonialism. And as a result of that, our behavior is dictated by that. So we vote and behave against our own interests as the American people, contributing to a system of evil inequality. Not since the Gilded Age has we've had this level of inequality. And because we have this level, we are vulnerable to the destruction of our democracy, to fascism, and to an insurrection that took place January 6th, and it could get worse. Yeah. So that is what's happening right now. And the no vote creates new conversations and begins a paradigm shift from corporate colonialism to what we need as a multiracial, fully functioning democracy that some call democratic socialism or socialism, whatever you want to call it. But it's a system where every single person has freedom and self-determination and equality.
I call that democracy. That's exactly what democracy is supposed to be, but we've lost that. I never heard that term before, Jamaal, and that's perfect, corporate colonialism. And so I got to ask one question related to that. My guess is that if you went on cable news, or even really right now on this show, and you said, hey, Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema are part of corporate colonialism, and when they take $1 million from drug companies, as Senator Sinema did, well, that's really a bribe and that's corruption. That you would get enormous blowback in Washington. What if I'm wrong about that? Tell me. No, there's no blowback. We could say that anytime. And you can still say it, of course, right? But what I'm curious about is what is the form of the blowback, right? If you say something that's would they consider too tough about a Democratic colleague in the media. What happens next?
I mean, I don't get much blowback. I'm pretty good. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I got blowback on the BIF vote because I think mostly people didn't understand it. But and I've cursed once or twice when I shouldn't have, and I've gotten some blowback on that. But overall, not much, in Washington. And for me, I'm riding for the people in my district. So as long as they're with me, it's all good.
All right, and then last question. Manchin now says, look, I was playing with you guys, basically. Now I don't want to vote on it until next year, maybe. And I want 3 other votes before. That basically means he's burying Build Back Better. And isn't that an enormous vindication of your position that if you voted yes on BIF, that you would have lost all leverage in the Senate? And Manchin is basically now confirming the progressives were right. You lost all leverage, and so I'm now going to bury the bill.
It does, but I think it's also worse than that, because progressives continue to be blamed for sinking the Democratic agenda and blamed for last Tuesday's losses in the general election, whereas it would be Manchin literally sinking the president's agenda, the Democratic agenda, if he continues to bury Build Back Better. And there's no way the poor and people of color and marginalized people are gonna come out and support us in the midterms or even for the next presidency if we don't deliver for them this time once and for all. And that's the bottom line. So it's even worse. And see, people like Manchin and others like them, they all hang out in the same circles, so they're very privileged. They're gonna be good. We, all of us here and everyone watching, we're fighting for every single American, every single person in this country, and we're trying to build it from the bottom up. So it would be worse. It's not just vindication for us, which is fine, but what's gonna happen when Republicans take control of the House and Senate, and then maybe even the White House? Like, this Trump thing isn't going away. Like, it's white nationalism is real. And if Trump comes back or someone like him, what the hell is going to happen in this country?
It sounds like if Manchin and Sinema and perhaps other Democratic senators continue to hold up Build Back Better and voting rights, let alone everything else, that there's going to be a clash, a major clash before 2022. Because you guys are running out of time, and the elections are going to come. And if you have the elections without voting rights in place, and without Build Back Better in place, it sounds like you're saying we're going to have this battle about colonial capitalism, and we're going to tell people why these decisions are actually made.
Yeah, we have to continue to keep our constituents informed, enlightened, and engaged by being transparent and constantly pulling them in. See, in my district, it was held by someone for 31 years. And he represented part of the district, not the entire district. Now, Black and brown people and people who are normally disengaged in this district now are leaning in to everything that's happening. So they're becoming aware and they're recognizing their power. And it's happening across the country as well. Workers are demanding more rights. They're demanding more pay. They're demanding to be treated better. And I think that's a powerful thing, and that's the power of the progressive movement. And I want to continue to push the movement to even get stronger by getting more organized, building more coalitions, because we have to start wielding power in Washington from the outside, like the fossil fuel companies and pharmaceutical companies do.
All right, Congressman Jamaal Bowman, one of the brave 6 who voted no in order to get things like paid family leave, lower drug prices, climate change in the Build Back Better bill. Thank you for joining us, and honestly, thank you for the vote.
Of course, peace and love. Good to see you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.